Hello and welcome to Sophie Co. My name's Sophie and this week we are looking at the 3 different meals that I made with the ingredients that I had in my very first Oddbox unboxing. Now that was a couple of weeks ago that I posted that video. I did cook these the same week, but I didn't want to post 2 Oddbox videos in the same a week after each other. So I'm posting the recipe video this week instead. Now, the first meal that I created was this kind of Buddha bowl type thing, and this was the way that I wanted to try and use up those Brussels sprouts that I really didn't want to eat. I found a recipe online for honey balsamic Brussels sprouts. I actually used maple syrup in my recipe rather than honey, but the reviews of these Brussels sprouts were saying that they basically didn't taste like Brussels sprouts, so I thought, hey, let's do that. So basically I just cut the Brussels sprouts in half and then popped them in the oven. And then I just thought I'd get this shot of the rainbow carrots. Yes, the rainbow carrots went in this recipe as well. And now that they're all cleaned and peeled, you can see that they're this really beautiful purple colour. I remember reading a few years ago that carrots used to be purple and then we basically genetically modified them to be orange. I think that's true, that's what I read. So it's kind of nice to actually be able to have purple carrots. I've never had purple carrots before. But that shows you what colour they actually were. I chopped those up into smaller pieces along with the purple sprouting broccoli, and I put them on a tray. I coated them with a little bit of oil as well as some rosemary. I've mentioned before in previous videos how much I love rosemary, and I also added a little bit of tarragon, I think it was. I gave that a good coating, gave it a good stir so that it was all thoroughly coated in the herbs and the oils, and I stuck that in the oven to roast as well. Once the Brussels sprouts were out of the oven and all nicely roasted, I stuck them in a bowl and I added the balsamic vinegar and the maple syrup, and I give it a good stir to give it a good coating. I did try one, and at the time I thought actually this is quite nice, but I will share my opinion on how they actually were in a minute. And then it was time to plate up. So remember the lettuce that was in the box as well? This is a very veg heavy recipe, this one. So I put the lettuce in the bowl. It was about half of the lettuce I used. And then I also put in some quinoa. I cooked up some quinoa and some brown rice to go with this. I used all of the quinoa and a little bit of the brown rice, but I didn't put the brown rice in until later when I realised how much brown rice I had cooked. I then, of course, added in the Brussels sprouts, and I added in the roasted carrots and purple sprouting broccoli. And I also decided to prep this for my lunch the next day because I had enough ingredients to make 2 really huge meals. So that's exactly what I did. I put some in a plastic Tupperware tub to take to work with me the next day. But then when I was looking at these 2 meals, I thought that there wasn't really as much protein as I would like. I was kind of craving protein. I think I had not eaten much protein that day. So I also added some black beans to both the meal prep version and to the one that I was about to have for my dinner. I did also add a little bit of salad dressing, but I didn't do that on camera. I did that when I actually sat down to eat it. My final verdict was that I really enjoyed everything apart from the Brussels sprouts. I really liked the maple syrup and balsamic vinegar combination, but I just don't like Brussels sprouts. I'm sorry, I just don't. But yes, this was my take on a Buddha bowl type thing, but apart from the Brussels sprouts, tasted really good. Now the second recipe that I made was this aubergine and artichoke pasta. Now you might recall that I did not have any aubergines in my Oddbox, but for a recipe that I'd made earlier on in the week, I had bought one too many aubergines. I had vastly overestimated how much I would need, so I had a spare one hanging around, and I thought, let's combine the 2 flavours in this. So what I did was I roasted the artichokes just in some oil, just nice and plainly, and then I put the chunks of aubergine in a saucepan. The reason that they are peeled is because my partner kindly did these for me, and being someone who doesn't like aubergine, he didn't realise that you weren't supposed to peel them, so he did that for me, bless him. But nonetheless, they still tasted really, really nice. Also in there are some shallots, all nicely finely chopped. I then added in some chopped garlic cloves. I then also put in some chopped up sun-dried tomatoes and some capers. And just give that a big old stir, let that cook through for a few minutes. And also, of course, added in the artichokes. I added in the artichokes before the sun-dried tomatoes, but I forgot to say that. So I then served it up. I had cooked up some pasta, which I then poured into a bowl, and I added this kind of tomatoey, aubergine-y, artichoke-y mixture on top of it, and then I topped it off with a few pine nuts. Now, this recipe is actually not one of my own. I kind of took inspiration from this recipe in Simply Vegan magazine. I believe this is, let me check. This is the February 2019 edition, and this is a magazine that I really, really like, but you don't necessarily have to get the magazine because this recipe is also on veganrecipeclub.com. They do credit that in the magazine itself. And I just thought I would do a comparison shot. I didn't follow the instructions completely for a variety of different reasons, but here's the shot from the magazine, what it should have looked like, and here is what I made. I do not claim to be a food artist. I am far more concerned with how the food tastes and how it looks. And it did taste really good, so I consider it to be a success. And the final dish that I made, again taken from Simply Vegan magazine, I'll talk more about that in a minute, are these burgers, Beefy Burgers as they call them in the magazine, which is a slightly more unusual way to use vegetables. This used the potatoes and the beetroot, and you can see what I do here is I just boil up the potatoes and boil up the beetroot. Again, I'm not 100% following the recipe here, but kind of more or less. And once I boiled up both the potatoes and the beetroot, I used the chopping device, the shredding device on my food processor, and shredded the potato, shredded the beetroot until it looked kind of like this. And once I had done that, I then cleaned it. Well, I didn't clean it out, sorry. I scooped it all out, put it into a bowl, and I didn't wash up the food processor because I also wanted to process some walnuts. I used the normal blade function on this rather than the shredder, and just whizzed those around until they were all nice and fine. If I recall in the recipe, it says until it's like a crumble consistency. And I chucked that in the bowl as well. I then got a smaller plastic bowl to make up my flour mix, as I'm going to call it. I put in some Vital wheat gluten flour, some agar-agar, some nutritional yeast. I love nutritional yeast, it's really, really good. And then I also put in some smoked salt and gave that a good old stir and added that to the burger mixture as well. I then melted some coconut oil and added a little dash of soy sauce to that as well, and I tried to mix it, but because of the consistencies of the two different liquids, they just wouldn't mix, and they kind of form this really cool pattern instead, which I quite like, but it was not going to mix. So I was just like, I'm just going to add that to the burger mixture as it is. Once I'd done that, I gave the whole thing a big old stir to try and combine all of the ingredients. You can see as I'm stirring it here, you can see those different layers of ingredients that I've put in so far appearing. And then I mixed it until it had this kind of consistency where it's a bit more sticky. Also off camera, I did a bit of mixing with my hands just so I can kind of feel the consistency as well. I then sprayed a baking tray with a non-stick spray, and I made these burger patty shapes. I made 5 in total. The recipe does say to make 5, but actually I made quite a lot, so these are all 5 absolutely humongous burgers. And then I put them in the oven to cook. Now, as I said, this was a recipe from Simply Vegan magazine. I'm showing you the recipe here just so you can have a look. But also, this is from the book plant-based meats by Robin Asbell. So I'm also going to link to where you can buy that book from down below, because I don't want to steal from anybody's ideas. I want to properly credit the people who come up with the ideas that I'm using in this video. And again, just going to do a comparison shot here. So this is what the burgers should have looked like, and this is what they did look like. Now, I think that this might be something that takes a little bit more practice, and I think this might be one of those things where the ingredients really do need to be exact. They kind of weren't quite exact. I think there was a bit too much beetroot, so it didn't quite work, but it was still enjoyable. I just wouldn't say it was, I could use it as a burger really. But nonetheless, something that I'm definitely going to try in future, because I really, really did enjoy it. And that is all for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you felt inspired by the different things that you could create with the vegetables in your Oddbox. I've since received a new Oddbox, but I'm not going to be doing a recipe video for every single one, because that would be insane. But if you want, on my Facebook page, I have a Facebook page, I might well post some of the recipes that I've made using the different vegetables from my Oddbox in this week and future weeks. My voice went up really progressively higher at that point. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a little like and comment below with what you would have made with these recipes and whether you like the look of any of these ones. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.